Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all the praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rabachakwadash. All praises to the Heavenly Father, in the name of His only begotten Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors to the elder apostles of the great millstone who rule well, and as always, peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect tabernacle of David that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Now, we always quote what it says in Job, the 12th chapter, the 16th verse, with him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. And a dude like Haman Malone or Vocab the Agagite, he's a perfect deceiver. The Most High is working with him on the left hand side. He's pretty much used to snatch away the word, which the word's compared to a seed, to snatch away that seed that is sown in the hearts of simple jakes. All right. And when we read that parable, the Lord is referring to individuals who fell by the wayside. All right, meaning they're hearing the word and they're trying to understand the word, but here come the devil, here come this seducing spirit, this wicked spirit that comes by and pretty much snatches away the word that was sown in their mind. All right, and this dude Haman Malone, he's the perfect deceiver. All right, I believe he's that wicked one, or I mean he represents that. Because there's a lot of wicked ones out there, a lot of false prophets, a lot of deceivers, even they of the circumcision too. All right, and their use is to work on the minds of souls who the Lord did not choose, and that's why they're not going to get the understanding. All right, and they're going to be made to speak evil of the things that they don't understand. So now, you see this devil now taking a stab at, you know, the understanding of the depiction of our Messiah, our Lord, that John saw in the vision on the Isle of Patmos. And now we already went through this before with him. Matter of fact, about a month ago, I'll say a month or two ago, where he was on some platform and I have the video pulled up. And the same topic came up because now the narrative is Revelation 1 when it describes the appearance of our Lord, based on the vision. It's not talking about the color of the Messiah. It's not talking about his skin depiction. All right, it's all symbolic now. It's all metaphoric. So that's the narrative to spin. Even though in the past, this same dude insinuated that the Messiah was a so-called white person. So and from their perspective, it's all symbolic. It has nothing to do with color. But if it's to be taken literal, it would be a so-called white man. You can't make this up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's why I say, you know, the deceived and the deceivers are his, meaning the Most High, he controls both sides. And you got a lot of simple Jake, because they're so used to the so-called white man, all right, validating everything for them. All right, if he doesn't validate it, if he doesn't co-sign it, then it's not facts. And that's a straight up slave mentality that our people still have. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna play this video so you can hear the narrative and what's being said and taught. And then we can definitely go into the scriptures and get the real true understanding and not the serpent's understanding. The serpent will never tell you the truth. He could tell you a form of the truth, but he will mix it with deception because that's his specialty is to be a deceiver and very very crafty, very subtle with it. Okay, so you got to very you got to look closely, pay close attention to what this devil say. or he will get over on you. That's why it talks about, those who are simple believe of every word. But the prudent man will look well to what's going. He will do his own search and allow the spirit to guide him. But those of our people that are simple and just gargling it up, swallowing it down, drinking it down, those are the simple that are deceived by the fair speeches and the good words. You can't be taken by the fancy terminologies and you know his ability to be articulate. You got to be able to see through that. So anyway, let's get into it and let's listen.
Responses. Brief responses to these verses. Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. Why do they use that? They believe it proves Jesus is black, therefore the Israelites are black. What does it say in context? What does it say in context? Let me look at it. Let me look at it and show you briefly. This is going to have to be brief. Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and on turning I saw 7 golden lampstands. So this should let you know this is symbolic. How do you know? Because if you go to Revelation 1, at the end, in verse 20, it says, as for the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. My point, the passage tells you that it's symbolic.
Right. And he's right on that. But now, when you actually analyze the chapter and you look at what's being described, there are certain parts of what John saw that had to be elaborated on. It had to be further expounded. The parts that was actually expounded upon were the mysteries. That was what was metaphoric. But notice the heaven. Notice Yahushai, who he saw in glory in his vision. Notice how he did not elaborate and break down when John actually described him as having um, hair white like wool, as white as snow, and his feet as unto polished brass or burnished bronze. All right, as if they burned in a furnace. He didn't have to break that down. He didn't have to explain that because that was direct. There was nothing metaphoric about that. He was using similitude, not something metaphoric. And this clown, despite all this knowledge that he appear to have or sound like he has, he doesn't understand the difference between a metaphor and a simile. To show you that even the wise of this world can still be foolish. And a person like myself, who the world would more than likely believe that I'm foolish, I'm illiterate, so on and so forth. But at least the Lord is using me to confound somebody who would be considered wise. And brothers like myself, brothers all in the different camps, all right, who got this wisdom by way of men, all right, with the Holy Spirit that taught us through the Spirit, and the Spirit supping with us to gain this understanding. All right, we didn't get this by way of going through a theological seminary and reading all these extra biblical texts. All right, the apostles didn't have to do that, and their disciples, they didn't have to do that. So anyway, let's go there real quick, because I want to point this fact out, because he's presented as if the whole entire thing is metaphoric. Yeah, there's parts of it that's metaphoric or symbolic, but the parts where he actually describes the appearance of our Lord, that was actually he was speaking. He was using simile, which is different from a metaphor. So let's go to Revelation 1. And let's read it. It says, Revelation 1, verse 1, the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach, which the Most High gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record testimony of the word of the Most High and of the testimony of Yahushua Mashiach and of all things that he saw. So he's going to describe to you the things that he saw in a vision. He's on the Isle of Patmos. Okay, he was banished because Domitian banished the Jews. They were being persecuted. The other apostles, they were murdered, but instead of him being murdered, he was actually banished. Now there's, according to certain secular history, that they attempted to murder Apostle John, but he didn't die. Something miraculous happened where he didn't die, so they banished him. According to some of those accounts, they said that they tried to burn him in boiling oil, but he wasn't phased by it. Like kind of like the account with the three holy children, all right, in the fiery furnace. So instead, they just banished him. Now that's according to the history, but I don't, and I've went into it before in the past. All right, but either way, we know that John, he was on the scene and he was given his vision. This was roughly around between 92 to 96 AD. All right, so this was decades after 70 AD because you got certain uh Reformed theologians or Protestants that try to say that everything was fulfilled or majority of the prophecies were fulfilled by 70 AD, including what was seen in Revelation. And that's not accurate when you get the accurate timeline of the history. So anyway, let's jump down and let's read the vision. Revelation 1 verse 9 says, I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Yahushua and Mashiach, was in an isle that is called Patmos for the word of the Most High and for the testimony of Yahushua and Mashiach. I was in the spirit of the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book and send it unto the seven churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, unto Smyrna, unto Pergamos, unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. That's the seven candlesticks. That's the seven churches. All right. And there were seven angels appointed to those seven churches. All right. So let's keep going. It says, and I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw seven golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the seven candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, describing Yahushua. So this is who we saw in the midst of those seven candlesticks, which represents the seven churches. All right. And it says, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and about the paps with a golden girdle, describing his priestlyhood. All right. How, like, when you go back to the attire of the priest, they had to wear a garment all the way down to the foot. And they actually had um a band around their chest that had golden thread that went around it. Well, Yahushai, he had a full gold girdle, all right, that went around his chest, showing you that his priestly order is greater and heavenly. It's over the Levitical priesthood. All right. It says his head and his hairs were white like wool. This is using similitude. When you're using a simile, you're making a comparison. You'll use the words like or as, trying to describe something that you saw. All right. He's not speaking metaphoric. This is something he's using to compare. All right. As white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. All right. Now, he's saying that this is only describing the color because it says white like wool, as white as snow. So he says it has nothing to do with the texture, even though, when we talk about sheep's wool, we know wool is actually a texture. It's a texture of hair, right? And it's happened to describe his hair, but it ain't talking about the texture though. It's just talking about the color. So let's just give them that. All right, it's just talking about the color. It's not talking about wool. As white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burn in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. All right, but let's read some more of this, because when we read further down to the chapter, just like he did, you're going to see that the Lord had to elaborate on something, but he didn't elaborate on the depiction. Why didn't the Lord elaborate on the depiction if this wasn't a metaphor, if this wasn't a mystery? You would have to give a breakdown on with this mysterious uh uh symbolism. You would have to break that down. What does it represent? What does it mean? Now, yeah, white does symbolizes purity, and yes, the Lord was pure. All right, he was innocent. He was blameless. He was a lamb without blemish. That's true. But is he describing his appearance? Because we're talking about a vision here. This is what he actually saw. This is what he's seen, right? But let's continue. It says, and he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. All right. And we know when it talks about a sharp two-edged sword, we know that this isn't literal, because his word, like it says in Hebrews 4:12, the word of the Most High is more is powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword. That was constantly found in his mouth, because the Lord was he was hacking them wicked scribes and Pharisees to pieces. That was being cut to the heart, because the word was constantly in his mouth. So we know this was symbolic. This was metaphoric. And then the right hand 7 stars. This is also metaphoric. And then it says, "And his countenance was that the sun shineth in his strength," and that's using similitude right there. So it went from using metaphor to simile right here. His countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength, meaning his countenance was bright. He was in his glory. When John saw him in the vision, he saw Yahushua in his glory, his glorified state. All right. So he had a glare to him. He was radiant. His hair was radiant. That's why when it talks about how his hair was as white as snow. You look at snow. Snow is very radiant. Let's look that up real quick. It has like a glow to it. It's so pure in whiteness. You see, snow is so purely white that it has its glow to it. Okay, so that's what John saw. All right, so let's jump down to verse 20. Now, this is when the Lord elaborates on um verse 16. All right, this is what he's going to further elaborate on, to show you that this is a mystery. So that means that this is metaphoric. But what was described up above, he was just using similitude. So it says, Revelation 1:20 says, "The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches." So he broke that down. So that was the mystery. He didn't have to elaborate. He didn't tell John, "Oh, when you give the record, I want you to describe me like this, and then I will break down what I mean by this." He didn't say that. So obviously, this description, he was just using simile, using other things in appearance to compare it to what he saw uh, uh, in that vision. concerning Yahushua, his appearance. Okay, and real quick, let's type in metaphor versus simile. Let's look that up real quick. And it says the difference is that similes make the comparison by saying that something is like something else, but metaphors make the comparison by saying that something is something else. You see that? A simile says that one thing is like or is as another thing. A metaphor says that one thing is another thing. All right, and that's what the Lord did when he described uh, verse 16 about what he had in his right hand, the seven stars, and um, it talks about the seven candlesticks up above. What that actually mean? The seven stars in his hand. He broke that down because that was a metaphor. All right, it's no different than like when you go to Daniel the 8th chapter, and it talks about how he has seen that ram having two horns. One was higher than the other. The one that was higher was the Persians, and the one that was lower was the Medes. And then he saw a rough goat with a horn, right? It had a little horn, and what did that represent? It represented the king of Grecia, which was Alexander the Great. So that was using a metaphor. It was symbolic, and the Lord had to break that mystery down to Daniel. Okay, so let's go back and let's finish this real quick.
It tells you in the passage itself because Jesus interprets what some of the symbols mean. But they take it from a description of Jesus' royalty, majesty, dignity, that's what it's really about, to his ethnicity. If Jesus is the way that they say he looks, this isn't the place to find it. Let me show you why. Revelation chapter 1, verses 12, going to 13. In the midst of the Lamb stands one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. You should think priestly, royal right there. The hairs of his head were white. So it's describing his hair. Wisdom perhaps represents that. Purity, that shine, right? White like.
See, that's see when they do that, it's like he's throwing in his pitch, and this is the real you in. Like, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense. But see, that's why I got to play this other video. He wasn't gonna go into Daniel the 7th chapter and the 9th verse because that cuts his whole premise in half. It really it dices it, all right, into smithereens. Um, but see, he's a very smooth talking dude. Okay, we're talking about a vision. This is what he's seen in a vision. He's describing what he actually saw. All right, you can make it whatever you want to make it, but the text is plainly clear what he actually said and what he was used to compare the description of the Lord. When he saw his head, when he saw the hairs on his head, when he saw the attire that he had. I mean, if him having on a garment down to the foot and a golden girdle, if that's metaphoric, then you're gonna have to break this down. Then did he have clothes or did he not have clothes on? The hair on his head, you're describing the color of his hair, but you're saying that this chapter has nothing to do with color at all. Now you see the games that this guy is playing. All right, and he doesn't want to deal with he. All right, like I said, we'll give him. Let's give him that for the sake of argument. All right, this is not talking about him having a texture of wool. It's just talking about his color. Well, when we go to Daniel 7 and 9, which I'm gonna actually play in a video where he actually is sitting down and is having a discussion, and it was a Israelite brother, I believe he was in a battle axe camp, and he actually asked him that question, and you're gonna hear him do the Nicholas brothers tap dance around the question. He didn't give a yay or a nay with his answer, showing you that he's the devil. But before we get to that, let's continue to listen.
Like wool, like snow. So how white is this hair? As white as wool, as white as snow. They say, so Jesus had woolly white hair. But is that what it says? It's talking about color, not texture. If it's texture, what's the texture of snow? Because it says white like snow also. Doesn't just say white like wool. What's the texture? It's not about that. And let me show you, it's going to get worse.
So that's his argument. All right, so what is the texture of snow? Because it ain't just comparing just the wool, it's comparing the snow too. No shit. It's a reason why he used two different things as similes. So let's go to this video where he's actually going to bring out the vision that Daniel saw when he saw the Most High in vision. And we know that Yahushai, which is the son of the Most High, he's the express image of the Most High. So he looks just like his father. All right. They have a term called a theophany. Look up theophany. All right. Yahushua is pretty much the theophany of the Most High Yahweh. So we're going to compare and contrast it. So let's watch this now. Let's revisit this. This is from like over a month ago.
All right. Okay. I don't see him here anymore, but his thing's still there. So. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. First, I wanted to say something. I wanted to respond to what you were saying. I'm going to respond with a question because you said that Christ. Well, you were alluding that they were wrong about Revelations 1 and 14 when they were saying that Christ was black. But are you saying that Christ is not black, or are you just saying that that scripture doesn't support that Christ is black, but he is black?
Of the exact color of Christ, I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell you the exact color of Christ. Revelation 1, 14, 15 is definitely not about the color of his skin, though, or the texture of hair. I'm not saying Jesus is white.
What about
he was not European.
Huh?
So I'm definitely not saying that, but I'm just saying the options are greater than black or white.
And they make it a black and white thing. It wasn't until so-called white supremacy that started that whole dynamic of black and white. But they like to, turn that back on us as if, we created that. But hey, I mean, we're not the ones who lied to the world. We didn't put our image up. Even though the icons, the ancient icons actually is proof in itself. All right. History tells you what the Lord and the angels and disciples and the children of Israel all together, what they look like. Even ancient carvings, hieroglyphs, all type of archaeology that shows that the people of the Lord were actually people of color. All right, but we'll browse past all that and we'll just deal with the topic at hand.
Okay. What about what it says in the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and 9? It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the ancient of days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. Is that implying to texture?
Now watch what he's getting ready to do. You got to watch this devil closely. He as he's listening, he's thinking like, damn, what kind of slick, subtle way, could I angle this? And that's how the serpent works, man. Okay, he cornered him right there with that verse. You can't get around that because it described the Most High's garment, the clothing that he had. You can't say that that's symbolic or that's metaphoric. He had a garment on, and it was white as snow. So his garment was white as snow, all right, very bright and white. And then it said his hair like the pure wool. It didn't make any comparison to anything else in that particular verse. It used the simile of wool, and we know wool is a texture of hair on a sheep. So now watch him try to wiggle around it or slither his way around it.
Well, fortunately, Revelation 1:14 is there for us. So we know where
Then
Revelation
he
1.
immediately diverts back to Revelation 1 and 14. So I guess Daniel saw a completely different vision. All right. Maybe the description that Daniel gave was, I don't know, but it has nothing to do with the same vision that Apostle John saw when he saw the Son of the Most High, the Son of Man, who was the Son of the Ancient of Days, who Daniel saw in the vision. Yahushua, he said, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father, right? He looks just like his father, where he's a split image of his father, just like the Israelites are also the split image. We were made in the likeness and image of the Lord. Let's go to Colossians 1 and 15. And it says, who is the image of the invisible power, the firstborn of every creature? For by him were all things created that are in heaven, that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. All right. So Yahweh is the image of who we can't see, which the Heavenly Father is who sits in the heavens. We can't see him. All right. And when John saw him, he was in his glorified state. So he saw the brightness. He saw the dazzle, the gleam, the glow. So when he saw his hair, it appeared like it was just straight bright. Okay. But when Daniel saw the Lord, he saw his hair like the pure wool. All right, Daniel 7 and 9. I'm gonna read it. You just heard him read it. Now I'm gonna read it. I beheld to the thrones were cast down, and the ancient of days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hairs of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Okay, but he was is describing the glory surrounding um the throne. Okay, so let's finish listening to him, give his his serpentine answer, and then we'll get some more scriptures.
14 says it's in regards to color. So if anybody was questioning, all they have to see is the way John uses the passage. He doesn't use it in regards to texture. So unless John is missing something, and
Yeah,
I don't know
but do
why,
you see how I was saying? Do you see how Daniel was saying the texture?
now he was not saying the texture. He does not. It doesn't. It's the hair of his head like pure wool. The what in there is about texture. And let me give you an example. The
So now he's saying it's not saying what exactly it said. So now he got to put his little spin on it. All right, and play semantics and manipulate the text, and that's what these Christians do. They'll try to say that we're known for doing that. They try to project that on us as if that's what we do. But you see, he's clearly doing that. He's manipulating the text because it made a separation. His clothes was white as snow, but his hair was like the pure wool. He's not. He doesn't see it that way. He doesn't want to see it that way. See, these devils, they're in denial, and really they're in fear, which is why they are in denial. This is describing a so-called black man sitting on a throne with glow, with gleam around him. All right, with a pure hair of afro hair. They don't want to admit to that, man. Okay, let's get the NLT. We always go to that translation. Let's see what that one say. Daniel 7 and 9, it says, I watched as thrones were put in place, and the ancient one sat down to judge. His clothing was as white as snow, his hair like pure as wool. I mean, are you gonna say that his hair, all right, is talking about the garment on the garment that's on his body? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that his head is attached to the garment? Make it make sense. It says the clothing that he has on his body, because even though this is the Lord is pure spirit, but he's seeing the likeness of he's seeing him in the likeness of a man. The same way John saw Yahushai. All right. His clothing was as white as snow, his hair like the purest wool. Okay. It was like the purest wool. He sat on a fiery throne with wheels of blazing fire. So obviously his yea is in his yea and his nay is in his nay. Now what does scripture say about that? Let's get that. This is what Yahushai said. Oops. Let's go to Matthew 5. Yeah. Matthew 5 and 37, it says, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. And you already know he gotta do his little spin. You know, he gotta spin that web, all right, of lies that like they're known to do. So you don't want to get caught up under that web. That's why you gotta have that ointment, that oil. Just like a spider doesn't get caught in his web because of that special um ointment that it has, that oil that it has, where it's able to glide, you know, over the webs and not get caught up in it. So he's clearly lying right here. So you know, Daniel, I mean, that's a cut to the wool part. But let's go back here, because then he's gonna lie about the color part. So let's go to that.
His eyes were like a flame of fire, clearly symbolic. Hebrews like say that's because he's enjoying it. I'm not kidding. They say he's either really upset or some say he was drinking before he comes back. I'm not joking. I'm not joking about that. IUIC says he had a little something. His feet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scripture in Genesis that says that his eyes will be red with wine, but I don't think that's describing him in his glory when you saw him in his glorious vision. I mean, brothers can correct me on that, but you know, I've heard that used before. But you can see how he uses certain teachings or talking points to try to make it appear as if we're bugged out our minds or we're crazy. But just peep.
Feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, And his voice was like the roar of many waters. So they'll say the roar of many waters, that's like a very white voice. It's describing the bass in his voice. But if you look up the phrase, like many waters, it's a way to describe whenever Yahweh is speaking in the Old Testament. This is saying when Jesus speaks, Yahweh speaks, not that he has a deep voice. But that's what they try to say.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. There's also a scripture in Revelation 10 where it refers to his voice as the voice of thunder. See if I can find that. Because the Lord did speak as one having authority. He was a very austere man, so he did speak rough. He didn't speak soft. He didn't speak all monotone. Revelation 10, I think I might have, let me see if I might have passed it. Yeah, Revelation 10 and verse 2, it says, and he had in his hand, is talking about an angel that brought that book, all right, down to John. It says, and he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot on the earth, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth. And when he had cried, seven thunders uttered their voices. And when the seven thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. So when the Most High speak, Jake scattered, like when they was at Mount Sinai, and they was desiring to speak with the Most High, and when the Lord was getting ready to speak to him, and the thunder, they heard the thunder and the lightning, Jake started scattering, and they didn't want to speak to the Lord. You don't want the Most High to speak to you, man. But those were angels that uttered, through the thunders. All right. But anyway, let's go back.
Say, his feet were like burnished bronze refined in a furnace. So the KJV says something a little bit different. It says, as if they burned. They'll say, what is something when it burned? When it's burnt, they turn it into the past tense. They'll say it's black. So they'll say, well, if feet were black, he had to be black. By the way, think about something that's burnt black. That's not really a description of how most people look anyway. Second of all, and it's in the Greek tense, but it's reflected even in the translation, it says, as if they burned. That means they are burning. It's not saying they were burnt. What is metal look like when it's burning? Gold, hot, flame. Everything about this shows the brightness of Jesus. The golden.
This dude he's, come on, man, stop it. Stop it. Y'all saw how he just spin that? So basically the Lord was on fire. So the Lord was in flames when John saw him, right? This guy's out of his mind, man. Now, when you do burn metal, it purifies it. And when it's purified, that means it's made more polished. It looks more pure, it looks more clearer. All right? It has when something is purely clean and speckle and spotted, it's glittering. It has a shine or glow to it. What is he talking about? So he's basically saying that the Lord didn't have a skin color because, or it's not describing his skin color because when John saw him, he just saw brightness. He was just on fire. So, or the Lord was gold. So you're saying that his feet was gold? The hairs of the hairs on his head was white, but not woolly though. It was just white. He had a garment on, but when John saw his feet, it was it was flickering. Stop it, man. Stop. This is horrible. Now let's go to other passages where you actually saw visions of the angel, and you saw the angel of the Lord appear to Daniel, you saw the angel, you saw angels or living creatures appear to Ezekiel. Now, and you're gonna see a consistency here because it's all going to describe the same thing involving a, a, um, a organ or a body part that was seen in these particular visions. So let's real quick, let's go to Daniel 10, and then we're going to go to the one in Ezekiel. So this is Daniel chapter 10, verse 5. It says, "Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz." This ain't metaphoric. This is what he saw. He had a garment, all right, clothed in linen, just like the angels do. The angels also clothed in linen, all right, pure, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz, right? So I'm sure there was a golden band around him too. His body was also like the beryl. So this is a simile, and he's comparing, his body like a jewel, because he basically he looked decked out and he was shining, like a jewel. All right, it says, in his face as the appearance of lightning. Why? Because when the angels appear or when the Lord appears, he's in his glory. So they're going to have a natural glow to him, a brightness. All right. Matter of fact, even when you look up the word white in the New Testament, like when it describes, it says that his hair was white like wool, as white as snow. Let's go there real quick. Let's go back to that, because it also means brightness. Revelation 1 and 14. Let's look up that word white in the Greek. And the Greek word is
Strong's G 3022. Lucas. Lucas.
Lucas, and it says light, bright, brilliant, brilliant from whiteness, dazzling white. Okay, so yeah, it can mean white, but it also can mean brightness too. Bright, dazzling white. So the Lord, when he saw him, his countenance and even his hair, it had like a bright glow to it. Okay, it had a glow to it, and his hair wasn't stringy. He didn't see no hair going down his back or down his shoulder. So obviously, if his hair was poofed up and it was dazzling and bright, yeah, it sounded to me like he's describing a dazzling fro, a dazzling white fro, man. But I know these these disguised white supremacists are not going to accept that. They rather play semantics. They rather dote about the words, the strife of words, like it says in 1 Timothy 6. But this is clear. This is pretty clear. So, but we dealing with the body, all right? He's describing, all right, here in his vision, he's describing this mysterious being, and he's in his glory. All right, he's very celestial looking, right? But he has the appearance of a man. All right, so his body is compared to the beryl, all right, and his face as the appearance of lightning. So he had a dazzling glow, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet. So describing his arms and his feet like in color, and it's using similitude, not a metaphor, to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. It says polished brass. Now, when you look in the other translations, it says burnished bronze or polished bronze. All right, the New King James Version uses burnished bronze. The NLT translation uses polished bronze, talking about his arms and his feet. The NIV uses the gleam of burnished bronze. Now, if this was a metaphor, then he would be, it wouldn't be broken down this way. Remember, going back to what a metaphor is you're saying that something is something else. A simile is you're saying is like something else in comparison. So let's look at burnished bronze. Now, this is the same thing that John saw, or at least this is using the same description. Let's go to Google and let's go to polish bronze. Because when it's polished, that means that it's sparkling, it's gleaming, it's been put through the fire, it's been purified. Let's go to images. Polished bronze. And you see that that's a brown color. This is brown. Let's use burnish bronze. And this is the color, brown. And it has that smooth, bright, dazzling, radiant appearance to it. All right, very radiant. Somebody even happened to have a depiction right here. Somebody drew that. Yeah, that's dope. I don't know what brother or who did that, but that looks dope. So you get it. So now you see it. This is brown, in which we're made from the dust of the ground. The soils come in these type of colors, from very dark soil to light brown soil. All right. It said gleaming though. Let's look at gleaming skin, because one of the translation used gleaming. Which one? Yeah, NIV. His arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze. So can skin have a gleaming appearance? Gleaming skin. And this is using, of course, women. But just look at that. Especially look at this one. This is gleaming right here. All right, this woman right here, man. You see how it is? She got that glow to her skin, even though it's a pound of makeup. But just her complexion, though, that smooth, bright complexion, but it's still dark. It's dark brown with a radiant, gleaming appearance to it. You can see the light shining off of her skin. Come on, man. So that's describing his arms and his feet. So of course the rest of his body is gonna be the same color. So what is this guy? What is this guy talking about? This is what he saw in the vision. Now let's go to Ezekiel. Well, you'll see that even an angel have the same complexion. This is Ezekiel 1. Ezekiel 1 verse 5, it says, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures. These were four angels, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, so they looked like a man, and everyone had four faces, and everyone had four wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a cow's foot, using simile again, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. So their feet sparkled. They had a glow, and they used burnished brass, in which we know it's actually dealing with bronze, which is a brown color. So you see the consistency. The angels, the Lord, and that's what it's all describing as far as their skin tone, because it's talking about their feet. And Daniel's talking about the arms in the feet. In LT, their legs were straight, and their feet had hooves like those of a calf, and shone like burnished bronze. Okay, it was gleaming. All right, and it could have used any other comparison. If you're trying to say, oh, this just represents brightness, well, it can. Why didn't it use fire? It could have said amber, like it was used to describe the will, which was, it was talking about the brightness and the glory of it. But it used burnished brass. That's because it was talking about the complexion, because they had the likeness of men. They came in the form of men, even though they were celestial beings. So this is pretty simple to understand, but the devil's going to complicate it for you, because he doesn't want you to really, um, you know, his job is to take away what is sown in your heart, and it's sow doubt. That's what the devil is intended. That's what his use is for. The Lord said the deceived and the deceivers are his. Now, one last thing before I close this out. All right, you go to this figure. This is going back to the 1500s. A man by the name of Thomas Baptist, or also known as Tamios. Right, he was a Greek painter, an educator, and a vicar. Right, now you go to one of his works, because he was a painter. You see one of the images right here. You'll see that the depiction was of a color. Let's go here. Now this was known as Revelation of Saint John the Divine. All right, and this is actually the painting of that vision of John that John had of the Lord and the angels. Now, what do you see? We're gonna zoom in, and as you can really see, John definitely looks like a dark skinned man right here. All right, he looks clearly dark skinned, and then when you look up here, you see the seven lampstands with the fire, and then you see the Lord. You got the golden girdle, you got the white garment, and you look at his feet. His feet looks like burnished bronze, and of course his face matched the same color. All right, and you see he got you see the hoariness of his hair. Now I don't agree with the hair being down to his shoulder. We know that the Lord had, you know, hair like wool, so it was kinky, wavy, curly hair. And then you see the angels, okay, and there's seven of them, and they all have in their hand. It looks like churches. because they were messengers of those 7 churches. And then you see the Lord in what he have in his hand. He has the keys. He has the king. He has the keys to the kingdom. Remember, he gave the key to to um to Peter. So yeah, man. And this was a painting back in the 1600s. You see, it was actually in 1596 to be exact. So you can't get around it, man. So Haman Malone. All right, you need. Hey, I'll get this to you. You're very dedicated, man. You're very determined. But guess what? You're still gonna lose. You're still gonna lose. If this counsel be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of the Most High, you cannot overthrow it. All right. You're gonna be found a liar when that time comes. You're gonna be confounded. You're gonna be ashamed and confounded. You just watch. And a lot of these simple jakes that's following you and listening to you, they're gonna be ashamed and confounded too. And they're gonna have their head down in the kingdom, being ashamed that they ever followed your ass. Anyway, that's pretty much the end of the lesson. I had to do a response to this, man. These devils gonna continue to, he gonna continue to do what he do until the Lord finally, brings the judgment. That's all. But he's only using guys like vocab to deceive the hearts of the simple. So anyway, I'm gonna end off with that. I'm gonna give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Shai. And until the next lesson, Shalom.